Morning everyone and welcome to this meeting of the Dingwall and Seaforth Area Committee. Reminder to all that this meeting has been recorded and will be posted on YouTube. Moving on then, are there any apologies for absence? We're all four here, that'll be a no. Declarations of interest, anyone? No, okay. In terms of the recess powers, the committee is asked to note that the recess powers granted by the council to the meeting on 26th of June 25 did not require to be exercised in relation to the business of committee. So moving swiftly on to area performance summary. Delighted to have Inspector Daniel back with us this morning. Good morning, Daniel, and I'll hand over to you.
Yeah, good morning, Chair, elected members and officials. So firstly, nice to see you all today, and my apologies, I can't be in person. I'm elsewhere in division today just due to operational commitments. So nice to see you all again, albeit online. I fully appreciate the pressing time restraints on the committee. So I've obviously been advised I've got 10 minutes today. So I'll just touch upon a couple of the pertinent points, if you're quite happy with that, Chair, before taking questions at the end. And as I said in the last meeting, anything I'm unable to answer, quite happy to take that away and obviously feedback in through yourself. So this report I'm obviously presenting on behalf of Chief Inspector Callum Smith, the Area Commander, for the reporting period the 1st of April 2024 to the 31st of March 2025. Under the first local police and priority, road safety or road crime, just wanted to highlight the reduction in road traffic fatalities, and that the number of road traffic fatalities in this report and all the other figures contained within the report are at North Highland Area Command level. There'll be certain breakdown of statistics I can give you specific to Dingwall and West Ross, but you'll see that there's been a reduction of 3 from 6 down to 3. As I said before, that's 3 still too many, but our road policing colleagues continue to work with national partners, promoting road safety and enforcing speeding and other careless and reckless driving in the area, along with other educational mechanisms in place. You'll also see that there's been a reduction of 28 in the drink and drug driving offences, from 281 down to 253, with a high detection rate of 89.7%. Specific to Dingwall and Seaforth, in this reporting period, we've actually seen an increase in 7 from 51 to 58. With the resourcing we now have in Dingwall, which I'll come on to at the end of the report, we have tried to deploy officers at kind of known hotspot times to undertake some more proactive stop checks. And just in the last kind of 5 to 6 weeks, there has been a number of notable detections in relation to drink and drug driving. Apologies. Now, I appreciate that's obviously out with this reporting period, but it's just to give that bit of reassurance to the committee that we are out on the roads trying to target the offenders that we need to. Moving on to the antisocial behaviour, disorder and violence local police and priority, Chair. Number of points I just want to quickly touch upon in relation to this. So you'll see that there's been a decrease of 15 in assaults across the reporting period, with an increase of 14 serious assaults. Without going into too much detail, some of that decrease in one class and increase in relation to the serious assault will be down to counting rules in line with the Scottish Crime Recording Standards, where further injury has been or has come to light from kind of medical intervention, and that pushes one crime from assault into the more serious assault category. You'll see the drug possession offences have dropped across North Island from 350 down to 313. Specifically in relation to Dingwall and Seaforth, that's a reduction of 77 down to 62. So some of that is down to being out and obviously enforcing warrants that we're obtaining from the court system in relation to that. There is a lot of wider work ongoing, not just in North Highland, but across the Highland and Islands in relation to our divisional organised crime team, in relation to obviously focusing activity into the areas where we need to. And in the drug possession offences, as you'd expect, it's a very healthy detection rate of 101.3. And again, that will be down to the kind of counting rules in relation to substances being submitted to the lab for further testing, and it's just when the results come back. In relation to the harm prevention officer, I know I kind of gave a bit of an update in February's meeting in relation to his role. That role continues to work well, with more involvement in the North Highland Area Command, specifically Wester Ross and Dingwall and Seaforth and Black Isle, and that is continual engagement with partners such as the DARS and social work, housing and education, and continuing to support individuals at risk of harm through either alcohol or drugs. And there's been some kind of notable interventions in relation to that officer's role, and kind of ensuring that those vulnerable individuals are getting, I suppose, signposted to the more relevant and suitable agencies to support them. In relation to the antisocial behaviour element, just to give a further bit of reassurance to the committee, I touched upon it in the February meeting in relation to, at that point, we had just reinstigated our Safer Ross meetings. Those meetings continue between ourselves, housing, the local housing associations and other relevant partners where we need to, and we have seen some quite notable, I suppose, results coming out of those meetings, where we're dealing with and I suppose taking a robust approach in relation to antisocial behaviour within kind of dwelling premises and everything else. That meeting, as I say, is subject to weekly scheduling with good uptake from partners in respect of that, Chair. So a lot of work going on in the background in respect of that, and as I say, with some kind of notable results from the inception of that meeting structure being set up. Moving on to acquisitive crime, just a couple of points in relation to that. You'll see that there has been, across North Highland, there's been an increase of 16 crimes in respect of housebreaking in dwelling houses. Specifically in relation to this area committee, we've actually had a reduction of 8. We've gone from 9 down to 1 for the reporting period. The wider increase across North Highland, a lot of those numbers, an increase, can be attributed to a crime series in the Dornoch area earlier this year, with inquiries are still ongoing in relation to that. And the other point in relation to this local police and priority I would like to touch upon is just the theft by shoplifting. So back in the February meeting, I gave an update in relation to a lot of the preventative work that we were doing and that we had planned going forward in relation to deploying our preventions and interventions team in respect of kind of repeat victim addresses across the entirety of the area. That piece of work, all those properties have been visited with a number of recommendations made to internal reviews. So you'll see there that we've had a reduction of 141 across the entirety of North Highland. Specifically in relation to this area committee, we've seen a reduction of 23 down 96 down to 73, with a healthy detection rate of 72.6%. I would suggest some of that reduction, not all, but some of that reduction is down to some of the preventative work that has gone on in those locations, and the advice and changes made to some of the store interiors. So it's just really to highlight that piece of work. That will continue. As I say, every theft, including theft by shoplifting, is reviewed on a 24-hour period, again looking for kind of crime series and trends in the area. Moving on to the Protecting Vulnerable People Local Police and Priority Chair, you'll see the numbers there for domestic and hate-related crime, and obviously the notes underneath in relation to comparison to previous years. As we move forward, we'll have that accurate data that will be able to make year-on-year comparisons, but you'll see at the minute for the entirety of North Highland, we've got 502 domestic crimes across North Highland and 77 hate crime incidents. What I would say in relation to that is daily reviews continue in relation to both those crime categories with I suppose a robust approach is how I'd probably describe it, along with relevant partners. Now that's both internal and external that we liaise with in respect of supporting not just the victims but witnesses in relation to those incidents, and obviously bringing perpetrators to justice and in through the criminal justice process. In relation to hate crimes, every hate crime, as I say, is reviewed. And again, where we find we're having a crime series in relation to that, which, to be perfectly honest, in the last report period, we have not found we've had that in this area committee jurisdiction area, but we do go out and support those victims by use of hate crime champions and our preventions and interventions officers to put safeguarding measures in place for them. On the flip side of that, in relation to perpetrators and suspects in regard to that crime type, again, we do deploy preventions and interventions officers to progress that proactive intervention approach with them to find out actually why they're offending and what the root cause of that is, and to try and divert them away from that crimes. The only other point, Chair, I was going to touch upon in relation to this section was the missing persons. So you'll see that there's been a very slight decrease across the reporting period of 3 for the entirety of North Highland. A lot of work's continuing to continue with our missing person coordinator and relevant partners such as the care establishments, where children or some children are accommodated, social work, education and health. That work is continuing on a daily basis, and again, where we're finding repeat individuals who are going missing, to see what further interventions that we can put in to safeguard them and ultimately prevent them feeling the need to go missing and leave their home address without maintaining contact with carers. You'll see in that section as well that there's a local police liaison officer who maintains contact and liaison with those care establishments in our area. That has continued and will do so, and we're finding that to be of benefit, just building up that local relations as opposed to just leaving it with the missing person coordinator. Moving on to the serious and organised crime local police and priority chair, you'll see there that across North Highland there's been an increase of 11 in the drug supply offences. Specifically for this area committee jurisdiction area, we've seen a reduction of 2 from 11 down to 9 in the reporting period. The only other point I would really just quite like to make in relation to this section is that we are continually on a daily basis reviewing the information intelligence which is received into our systems in relation to disruption and detecting this crime types. Now, that may range from obtaining a warrant from the court system to obviously execute at different addresses, down to kind of localized interventions, again utilizing on occasion the harm prevention officer to obviously kind of safeguard and divert those individuals at risk from harm. North Highland Area Command, as I updated at the last meeting in February, we continue to have a proactive team in the Eastern and Western Ross area, and they have undertaken a number of pieces of enforcement across the area, obviously looking to disrupt and detect the crime type. And as I say, we've had a fairly significant success rate with that team being focused on that. Members may recall in the news, so there was a notable detection at an address on Dingwall High Street, which involved a large-scale cannabis cultivation in Dingwall. So some of that work in relation to that was obviously processing the information that we were receiving and progressing to warrant in relation to that. the only thing I can say in relation to that is inquiries are still ongoing. So just to kind of give that, I suppose, that update that that's still working through the kind of criminal justice process. And Chair, the last local policing priority is the counter-terrorism. As I said at the last meeting, that's more a kind of standing local policing priority. If there's any questions in relation to that, I can obviously take away and come back to the committee, but happy to take any questions. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Daniel. I'll open it up for questions from members. Angela?
Yeah, thank you. And as you can see from the report, we're like 5 months away from what's in the report. So, and thanks for mentioning the one in Dingwall, which was well publicised about the drugs factory. So my questions, I've got a couple just to stick to quickly, Daniel. On the domestic crimes, I know it says that the way the data has been sourced is different, and it's at the moment it's standing at 502. Is that data split between male and female? Given the domestic abuse policy changes, are you going to be collating that as you go forward? The care experience young people that had gone up by 5, and are these from the care homes in Highland? Because of the protocol in place, if a child doesn't come back in time, just to clarify if it's from homes or from residential care homes. The other question was about on page 16, unlawful use of motor vehicles. That's like gone up 1/3 in 5 years. Can you explain, is that not having insurance, or maybe break down what that unlawful use of motor vehicles is? That's halfway down, it's group 8 on page 16. And I suppose my other was on shoplifting as well. And on this report for 24-25, it's actually gone down. Is that because you're working closely with the shopkeepers, or is there any particular reason why it's gone down by over 140 in the last year? On the antisocial behaviour and the Safer Ross, I know that the housing team are delighted that those meetings are up and running again and having an effect in reducing through the partnership antisocial behaviour, because that is a big issue in many of our housing areas, is the amount of antisocial behaviour, some of it drug related, some of it not, that's happening in our area. And the other question I have really is from our community councils, Daniel, in particular, Muir of Ord raised at their last meeting. They feel that the police report they get is vague and only has like 3 lines changed from the quarter before. And I know our other community councils feel the same, but they have been, it took some time to do, but they have been meeting with the police as chairs, or maybe 1 or 2 representatives from the community councils, and they've found that worthwhile. So I suppose they feel that the reports are not relevant. They just feel it's like cut and paste, and what's been done to improve that. Thank you.
I think we'll just go with those first before we bring in other members.
Yeah, no problem, Chair, and thank you, Councillor, for your questions. So in relation to domestic crime, yes, we can, going forward, obviously break down male and female victims, and we can obviously do that kind of going forward as the data starts to come through. So yeah, no issues with that whatsoever. Care experience individuals. So yeah, what we are finding is we are getting a lot of repeat missing persons when individuals from care experienced accommodation looked after accommodation I suppose comes down to when they're not returning for a kind of pre-agreed curfew. Their policy is that they will report that to Police Scotland. So at that point they are documented as a missing person, and it's some of those individuals that we then engage with, and we engage with the homes as well in relation to the policy. You know, if someone's 10 minutes late home, is it is it proportionate to report them as a missing person? Different if that time obviously extends and goes on. So our missing person coordinator has those kind of weekly discussions with different establishments over the entirety of the Highland area. In relation to the Group 8 crimes and lawful use of motor vehicles, off the top of my head, I do not know what all offences I suppose constitute that crime type, but what I will do is I will take an action away from this committee, find out exactly what that is, and I'll get back to you, councillor, if that's in order, just to give you that, obviously, that update in respect to that query. The theft by shoplifting. So yeah, so there's been a lot of engagement that has gone on with our between our preventions and interventions officers and the shopkeepers. That was as per the update back in February in relation to kind of doing that preventative piece with them, walking through the stores and making advice in relation to store layout to make it obviously more difficult for people to commit crime. There's also been an increase in relation to engagement with Retailers Against Crime, which is a national organisation which further supports all sides of stores and organisations in relation to obviously detecting and disrupting kind of shoplifting and shoplifting groups across Scotland. So that's bearing fruit. The other point I would just say in relation to theft by shoplifting, so we do now have a national retail crime unit, which has just been, I think, awarded something between £3 to £4 million for preventative work ongoing across Scotland. And the inspector within that team is actually based in Inverness, although covering a national portfolio. She is based in Inverness, and I know we've obviously liaised with Inspector Emma Wright in relation to a couple of addresses across North Highland in relation to further support that we can give to those establishments. In relation to the Muir Ward Community Council and the report, I'll certainly feed that back. In relation to the data as well, the information I'll call it that's being supplied. Obviously, we've got to, and I appreciate it probably appears vague, we've got to be careful in what we put out. So in the small areas, we're not identifying maybe people who that crime possibly relates to, but I'll certainly feed that back to the team that circulates those reports and drafts them with that feedback. In relation to the community council meetings with the chairs, yet we too have found that to be a positive from our perspective. The next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, the 30th of September at 7 p.m. Invites, I believe, have been sent out for that to all chairs within my area, and we obviously look forward to kind of hosting that meeting again. And I think, councillor, I've covered everything that you had asked, and as I say, I'll come back in relation to the query in relation to unlawful use of motor vehicles.
Thank you. That's fine. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Just in addition to that, Daniel, I think it's common to all community councils that we go to that they are critical of the police reports. I'm not sure it's of any help, but it's probably as well that you know that. But the chairs' meetings are appreciated.
Yep. Thank you.
Maybe some thought for that. Councillor Patterson.
That's all right. I was pressing the wrong button. Thank you. It's just we're not in here often. You get used to the one at home. Thank you, Daniel. That was very thorough. So I won't repeat other questions that were asked because I've got an answer for them. But there's two that I want to really ask what can be done, but I don't think anything can. And one is the shoplifting, and I know you answered to Angela on it, but what it really worries me that sometimes in a shop, and I know it's happened a few times all over the world, people are shoplifting and going out of the shop, and there's children standing there, and they sort of think, what do we do? But the people that are in the shop, they can't leave the shop and run after them. So it's actually getting bigger, and I do worry about it when the year goes on and people don't have money, and but we have to try and do something, because it's people in the smaller shops, it's their livelihood, and they're seeing it going out the door and they can't do anything about it. So, and the other one is antisocial incidents. All across the ward, we're having that. And the worst thing is that people phone me up, and I'm sure they phone the councillors as well, and ask me to do something about it. But really, they have to get in touch with the police. And I say to them, well, you have got to get in touch with the police to report it, not me reporting it on your behalf, because it's got more power then. And we really, I mean, they're seeing this incidence, but they can't do anything about it. And they say, well, by the time we get in touch with the police, it's happened and the people have disappeared. So I think that's one of our biggest problems, so that was just my two. Thank you.
Back to you, Daniel.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So, so just in relation to the theft by shoplifting, councillor, yes, so we do find shopkeepers are unable to respond, obviously, because they're obviously resourcing their shop. What we do encourage is for them to call into Police Scotland at that time. We do have CCTV coverage across large areas of the town, which we have used to obviously detect some of the shopliftings in our area during the reporting period, and we'll continue to do that. So, and the shopkeepers are given that advice, and wider staff within those premises are given that advice when visited by not just the preventions officers, but response officers who are attending to take that crime report. In relation to the antisocial behaviour, yeah, we would encourage every householder that's experiencing issues and antisocial behaviour to call police at the time. We do find it slightly more difficult in relation to receiving reports 2-3 days later when the event has passed, which obviously you've alluded to. The one thing I would say in relation to that is, even if they do end up reporting it 2 or 3 days later, that does get logged, and again that starts to build up a picture when we're having those discussions with partners at the Safer Ross meetings. So there is that wider piece, but yes, we do definitely encourage people to call Police Scotland at the time. What we do sometimes find is actually they'll send an email to the likes of Housing Department over the weekend, and it gets picked up on the Monday, and only at that point does that come through to ourselves. But yeah, so as and when you're speaking to your constituents and your members, yeah, I would just plead with them to call us at the time of the incident, and at least then we can obviously get a unit dispatched to go and kind of deal with that appropriately at that time. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions, members?
I don't know how long this is going to take, Graham, to be quite honest. Daniel, first thing, I take it Callum is gone now to higher grounds. He's now a detective chief superintendent. That's my first question, yeah? I'm going to bring anti-social behaviour in. I really don't think that they should be doing it in any way whatsoever. Yes, it's we've got to encourage people to report these things, but these are quite often neighbours, yeah, that are causing these antisocial behaviour things. You know, do you not realise how difficult it is for a neighbour then to make a report to the still, you know, living next door to the police? You know, you say you liaise with the partners, which is housing and things like that. Nothing ever seems to get whatsoever. Yeah. So you know, nothing been done to try and rectify this antisocial behaviour going on. I mean, if people actually phone up the police as well, you know, half the time the people you get through to, yeah, they don't even know where Dingwall is, yeah. I mean, I'm going to give you an instance. You know, I've taken to riding round the quite bottom of my bike. Now, I don't know if you knew about this in the end. I phoned 999. I was going down the side of the platform, yeah, and somebody had put a cord right across the in fact, it was a Henry Hoover had been beheaded, and part of it was put down the bank. He was tied to the fence then, and head out, tied round the tree. I phoned the police. You know what the police said to me? Phone the council. I said, I am the council. I mean, and in the end, I just gave up, and I went into Dingwall police station, and I was raging about it. You know, it's prevention, as you're going on about, not detection. Within 10 minutes, I don't know if you were the senior officer that dispatched some officers down to come, because there's CCTV cameras up on the side of home bargains, yeah? And they said they did see somebody at the end. They phoned me back in the end and said that they had spoken to some box, and it was going to get reported as reckless endangerment. I mean, you know, I said to the person on the phone, yeah, she said, "Is there anybody hurt?" I said, "No." So I said, "If I'd have been knocked off my bike and I was lying dead on the side of the road, yeah, I'd head out. Would the police have been involved then?" "Oh yes, they would." I said, "Well, you know, you should come down and have a look at this. You know, this should be looked at." And it all comes down to there are not enough police officers around. Let's go on to the next one, yeah? Not last Friday, Saturday night, the Saturday before, I was wandering around Dingwall High Street. In fact, I think, Councillor Mackenzie, I came across your party in the Rothschild Club. I was speaking to some of you, and I think they've seen these people as well. There's a group of young people, yeah? They were threatening some people who had left the Rothschild Club, yeah? One of them had half of their scaffolding pole in his hand, yeah? Now, as I was down the street, I did stop some of your officers, and I told them about it, yeah? They went to have a look. They were 30 seconds later, they were back on the high street. That wasn't any searching for youth. And I gave them a good description of it, yeah? Again, you know, it was two young officers, because I said to them, I said, "Look, I said, this guy's got a scaffolding plug. If you're going to stop him in it, watch yourself, you know? You're about. The drugs, you know, you say that it's absolute rubbish. There's more drugs going on in Dingwall than there ever been, yeah? But, you know, if anybody said anything, nobody's interested in it. Like you found out about it yourself. But, I mean, I was speaking to somebody from amenities today, yeah? And he finding needle in places. In Nichols Court, right in the high street, yeah? I see needles all the time, all over the... So, I mean, to say that the drugs is on the decline, not a chance. Not a chance. Shoplifting. Do you actually go and report the shoplifting when, you know, there's it's 141 down, yeah? You know, probably, you know, because there's nobody there to think that. Nobody'll go, yeah? You know, one of the community councillors, an ex-chief superintendent, he said at the end of the day, whether it's a can of beer that's been stolen or whatever, it's still there, yeah? And when people have got people who've done this, these people should be taken to task. Last thing on a bit on I've got to ask about on road safety is the Carty Road. Yeah, top part. I think I've had somebody on to me and been up onto the council as well, and getting the has been, you know, been monitored and things like that. I think the accident last winter and anything, and I think concerned about the speed that the boy racing. You know, it's like coming down to, you know, a racetrack. You know, yeah, it's an average speed. Yeah, so it's a really dangerous place, and we've got to think about it, because hopefully within the next couple of years, yeah, the 2 new schools just down at the below I'm speaking about the about Castle coming down into the main road, yeah. So I think that's all I'm going to go on about at the moment, Daniel. I apologise. It's just, you know, I live in the Dingwall, yeah. I see what goes down, yeah. But the few officers that you have on the street, you're not seeing what I'm seeing. So that's my little bit just now. Thank you.
Kate, I'm not clear. Yeah, just without much contribute any more to it, can you just tease out for us what the arrangements are with Highland Council for monitoring speeding? Because my mailbox is quite full of people from Cornwall talking about the perceived speeding issues within the village. And I'm a wee bit lost as to who takes the initial steps in that when it comes to monitoring speeds. You maybe just touch on that. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem at all, Chair. So I'll just work through that very quickly. So in relation to Callum Smith, so he's actually undertaken both roles at the minute. So he is still officially area commander for North Highland, and also undertaken the role of detective superintendent for Highland and Islands Division. There has been a new area commander appointed. He is not in post as of yet. I'll obviously engage with elected members to obviously give them that update and introduce you to him. We're just waiting for a date to be identified, but we're hoping that's going to be in the next 2 to 3 weeks, and that will be Chief Inspector Dave McAlpine. In relation to antisocial behaviour, fully acknowledge that it's difficult for neighbours to, or sorry, for members to report antisocial behaviour in respect of their neighbours. Completely understand that, but if we're not aware of I suppose a situation at a location with you know, involving individuals, then we're very limited as to what we can do. What I would say is they can report it anonymously. Now that's either into Police Scotland itself or via Crime Stoppers. The latter, obviously, it doesn't come through kind of live time, but we do still get receipt of that information. The only other thing I would say in respect of that is obviously the perception that nothing's been done. Obviously, for any kind of longer term eviction process being instigated by housing along with other partners, that can be quite a lengthy time process through court. And you know, so that is not a quick process. I am aware of the incident, Councillor, that you alluded to in relation to the cord across the path. I know it was I know the team that was dealing with that and everything else. What I'll do is I'll contact you kind of off table in respect of the update in relation to that. I know there was a couple of different inquiries that were worked through, but I'll come back to you if that's in order, just in relation to that. And the other detail I would obviously, if you're kind enough to share it, was in relation to the details in relation to the group of young people with the scaffolding pole. I'm not aware of that, but obviously I'll certainly look into that and to see what was done, and if obviously if there wasn't anything progressed, then I'll look to see as to why that is, and we'll look to change that. I take fully on board in relation to your comments in relation to drugs and finding needles and other individuals finding needles about the town. The only thing I would, I suppose, reiterate in relation to that is that we are, when the information is coming into us, that gets completely sanitized by our divisional intelligence unit and gets allocated out for warrant enforcement or disruptive tactics in relation to those individuals. So that work does continue. And as I say, every piece of information and intelligence which is received into our organisation is filtered through that process and progressed. In relation to the theft by shoplifters and people getting taken to task, we can only operate within the confines of the Criminal Justice Scotland Act 2016, which there is the presumption of liberty. When we're presenting cases to the Crown Office and Procurator Fiscal Service, it's obviously the decision to prosecute and take forward into the criminal justice process is one for the Crown. So I fully understand the local frustrations in relation to that. But as I say, given that piece of legislation and the presumption of liberty in relation to that, we have got to work within the confines of that legislation. In relation to the road safety question about obviously the section of road which has been used as a racetrack, the audio was slightly broken, so I'll maybe get that from you off table. But in relation to the roads kind of speed monitoring, so where we become aware of information in relation to known hotspots, my team will liaise with Highland Council's Road Safety Department and to see if we can get road monitoring equipment out to those areas over a set period of time. And that doesn't just give us the average speed at that location, but it gives us the peak speeds at certain times, which allows us to undertake enforcement action at those locations. So there's obviously 2 or 3 bits there, Councillor Kennedy, that I'll come back to you off table if that's in order, and unless there's any other questions, Chair.
Just quick, Daniel, I'm absolutely happy with that. If you want to tell me when you're free, I'm quite happy to come along and have a meeting with you.
Fantastic, thank you.
Okay, well, thanks for that, Daniel. Comprehensive as ever. And it's good to be able to have the opportunity to ask questions. So thanks very much for your time, and we'll see you soon.
Thank you. Have a good day, everyone.
Moving on then to agenda item 5, housing repairs performance report. I understand we've got Ewan Marsh online, so over to you, Ewan.
Thank you, Chair. Good morning to you all members. I'm also joined by my colleague today, Gavin Mackenzie, one of our acting principal repairs officers. Thank you for the opportunity to take you through the housing repairs and capital performance report. So looking at the report itself, 2.1, members are asked to note the information provided on housing performance in the period 1st of April 2025 to the 30th of June 2025, which is of course up to the end of Q1. Getting into the body of the report, section 6, which is under the heading of repairs. This highlights that the performance figures are average times taken to complete repairs, members. 6.2, the average length of time taken to complete emergency repairs is calculated in hours. So table 1, it confirms that the Highland Council's target is 12 hours and the Scottish Housing Network is 4 hours. Now for members' clarity, I think it's always good to point out that this is the time measurement of repairs to initially make safe a reported issue. It might not be the full scope of works if materials are required and additional remedial works, but the whole point of the emergency is to make it safe for tenants and other residents. I'm pleased to draw your attention to the strong performance for emergency repairs of 4.7 hours, which remains well within the 12-hour target. Moving on to 6.5. This is the non-emergency repairs aspect, and this is measured in working days, so there's a slight difference there. In Table 2, it confirms that the Highland Council's target is 8.9 days and the Scottish Housing Network is 9 days. That's the target. And performance within the ward, it currently sits at 9 days. That's only very slightly at 0.1 days above our target members. And obviously we're continuing to make efforts to reduce the current performance so it's within target. Moving on to Table 3, this is under the heading of Void Management. And for clarity for members, void management, it's a measurement of days for the whole relet process. So for information, this is the clock starts when our outgoing tenants hand the keys back. There's then the remedial aspect of the works with my own team. And then the process also includes the sign up of new tenants. So we're predominantly the bulk of the central part of that process. Now, we're currently reporting 56.29 days. We are aware that that's over the 35-day target, members, and we're making efforts to try and reduce that. Over the last year or two, we've bulked our voids team, our in-house resource, to try and deliver as much as we can internally, rather than reliance solely on subcontractors. Moving on to the capital programme, summary in section 8. Members should note that we're within a 5-year capital programme for this investment. Now, this does allow for some acceleration or underspend throughout the time span. Underspend, perhaps not the right word, but it just highlights that where there's a perhaps perceived lack of allocation of funds, it's just that the programmes haven't been initiated yet because we have the 5 years in order to do that and make adjustments where required. 8.2, I think this is worth noting, members, that regarding our capital plan programme, we've had a beneficial partnership over the last few years working with our climate change and energy team colleagues in order to provide value for money and assist us with providing upgrades to properties. We're working together. They can source and tap into other grant funding so we can work collaboratively to try and achieve a greater outcome for our tenants. Having a look now at Appendix 1 at the end of the report, this highlights the planned investment spend. Bear in mind, as I said before, members, this is 5 years, so this is over the period of 2022 to 2027. Below that, we have the capital, reactive capital. This spend's been itemised for members' information from the period of 2022 to date. Now, the difference between these two strands, members, is capital, planned capital is delivered by our asset management colleagues, and reactive capital is delivered locally through my own team in housing repairs and maintenance. So the main difference for that is that the reactive capital, the clues in the title, we respond as quickly as we can when we encounter an issue that needs a solution or a more urgent upgrade. If somebody's heating fails, then we can go and we can go and procure a new heating system and install that. Or if a kitchen or bathroom has failed, then of course we want to react quickly for those upgrades. Finally, Appendix 2, we've itemised for members' information the quantities or count of the different types of expenditure according to capital. So that's the report, Chair. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you. Well, I'll kick off then in terms of the tables. And it seems that although we're around about the time that is recommended over Highland, we in Dingwall and Seaforth, I think it would be fair to say in general terms, don't seem to be doing as well as Highland. And in particular, we appear to have had a very bad Q4. I was wondering if you care to touch on that and give me some sort of reason as to why that might be the case.
Absolutely, Chair. Chair, could you please clarify, is that for emergency repairs?
It's for all three tables, actually.
Okay.
And the emergency repairs in Q4 we were 11 as opposed to 3.5. And in table 2, We seem to be consistently above where Highland is. And again, in Q4, it goes up to 11. And in table 3, the relet time, once again, every figure there for the quarters, I think I'm right in saying, is above Highland, the rest of Highland. So I was just looking for some sort of reason as to why that might be the case.
Absolutely. Thank you, Chair. Thank you for the clarification. So in table 1, the emergency repairs response, you're quite right. Q4, we're reporting 11 hours. Now, the principal repairs officer and myself, we've looked at the data for that, and I can confirm in this case, there's an unfortunate administrative error, shall we call it. What happens, Chair, is for emergencies, we're measured obviously for the time to mobilise to the site, to make it safe, and that closes the job down. We're currently working with our subcontractors in particular, where there's sometimes some ambiguity when they upload their information confirming that they've completed a repair. Sometimes, Chair, in their paperwork, the date of completion is reported incorrectly. It's the date of invoice that they're putting in. So we're having to, now we realise this, we're having to put under more scrutiny some of the completion dates that have been sent to us, because it's not the date of invoice, it's the date of completion on site. So for members' information, we had a look. There was, just bear with me, please. There was one particular job. No, sorry, there's 5 particular jobs for emergencies where we believe that the completion date was the date of invoice. Now, this would, if these had been caught, Chair, we could have cleansed the data, this would be down to 3.4 hours. So we do offer apologies that based on the report that it's been presented to you in that manner. Unfortunately, Chair, I cannot retrospectively change that data. What we can do is work as a team and proactively work with our subcontractors to ensure that the correct date and time is inserted for completion of an emergency. For table 2, which is our non-emergency repairs, this is measured in days. What we did have, Chair, you may recall, we had a number of works over the last year or two under the heading of lower priority. What that meant is some works were held until we had sufficient capacity within the team to action this in efforts to reduce our subcontractor spend. Some of those jobs were held for quite some time, and then when we did get the opportunity to complete them, the clock then stopped, which then produces a higher number than what we would have liked to measure our performance. In table 3, void management, you're quite right, Chair, that the numbers are high. Again, this historically has been impacted by our decision to reduce subcontractor spend. The Ross-Shire team, Ross and Cromarty team, we had a very small voids repair team, and we relied more heavily on subcontractors. So what we've done on the back of that is we've bulked up and increased the size of our voids delivery team. That has impacted and continues to impact our performance. There's also one other aspect, Chair. We are able to performance indicate exempt certain voids for a certain time period within a void if it meets a criteria. It appears that a few voids in your area, we haven't applied the PI, performance indicated exemption, which has further exacerbated some of the performance. Again, I offer apologies for that, members. We're working together with the Principal Repairs Officer to ensure that these are captured at source to more accurately reflect our performance. Hope that answers your questions, Chair.
It does to a point, Ewan, but I'm assuming that these set of circumstances that you outline are not unique to Dingwall and Seaforth. So I suppose the question is are these particular to Dingwall and Seaforth, and is that what's causing us to be out of kilter with the rest of the island?
particularly for voids, Chair. Ross and Cromarty team were one of the few teams who didn't have a larger scale voids team, so that had to be increased from our current workforce. So it has had a knock-on effect, probably with both aspects of void, that we're playing catch up when the team they're working excellently, but obviously we didn't have the same number of resources as previous, and we've had to boost that team from our core team, which will impact some of our routine non-emergency repairs.
Okay, Ewan, thank you. I'll look forward to seeing the next table for our next committee. Any other question, members? Councillor Kennedy.
Thank you, Chair. Ewan, just a couple of quick things. I've got a report number which is FS 698023624 regarding something in McDonald Road. I think there's some somebody did go and have a wee look at it, but I think that some of it there's a bit of trip hazard. I've got you here. I was going to email you about it, so you maybe have a look into that. There's still a trip hazard on some steps, yeah, that maybe needs attending to. Corrie Gardens in your award, I think I spoke to you about it before, and it seemed to have gone very quiet and everything. Could you maybe sometime fire me a little update of what's happening with new window there? And if somebody wanted to entitle this solar panels in the council houses, is it you who makes the decision about it, or can people apply for them to go on or when you suddenly say we're going to this street and you might you to get. Thank you.
Thanks, Ewan. We'll take Councillor McLean and then we'll come back to you.
Okay, thanks, Ewan. And I know you've not been in the job that long, so although you're apologising, I think probably a lot of this happened before you were in post, and it's just carried on. So I just wanted to clarify: is it all emergency repairs the subcontractors deal with? I thought that's what you said in your response to Councillor Mackenzie. And on the table at 7.2, I've asked this previously, but I still don't understand why we as a council, as the landlord, when we know a property that a tenant is giving us notice to leave, why we can't go around the property and get a quick view of what's required. I know it won't cover everything, but at least you could have the orders. You would know, what maybe needs replaced or fixed. Or is it that many of them are houses that have been vandalised to some extent, and that's why the voids are so long? Or does that come under the exempt voids? And because my frustration is that that's almost 2 months that the council's not, taking any rent or council tax in, and while we're waiting for the repairs. And previously I wasn't sure if it was because there wasn't a large enough in-house team, because previously we'd get contractors to do it, while it might save money in having the in-house team do it, the loss to the council and other, through rent and council tax goes to a different service. It goes back to the housing service. So I just wondered about that. In the capital programme, which is here, Appendix 2, 6 of the budgets are all for energy efficiency, and I was at Housing and Property last week, so I know that we've been working with partners, as you see in the report, to get additional funding in order to do that, which is welcomed by tenants, as well as when you go and visit some of the properties, the difference in replacement doors, heating systems and windows. Their bills are cut quite considerably, and it gives the count of numbers here of properties or jobs that have been done. And I wondered, what is the percentage of these against the works that are required You know, is this just like 1%? I suppose a bit what Councillor Kennedy's touched on. How many are we needing to get done in the area? And I think that's all my questions. You'd be glad to. Oh no, the last one is on Appendix 1. I'm a bit confused about the reactive capital totals, especially for LD2. Is it an overspend from the previous year or what? And the rewiring, does that come as a separate contract when this is, because all the rest have a sum against it, but these are confusing to me.
Okay, Ewan, we'll pause there. If we come back to that one, then I'll go to Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Kennedy, more than happy to refer to you offline on the FS case that you've quoted to me, that case number, that's fine. And Corrie Gardens, I'll come back to you there as well. I'll arrange for updates for you. Solar panels, I presume if we're referring to council tenants to apply for a solar panel, I'll have to check the mechanism, Councillor Kennedy. My colleague, Graham Ralph, he manages the asset management team. He heads up the capital programmes. What I can update you on is that when we do a full retrofit programme, that it meets the full criteria. When we install typically an air source heat pump, solar panels are part of the overall process. If the property would benefit from them, if it's orientated in the right manner and the roof is in a sufficient state to have solar panels, they are seeking to install solar panels, which do make a positive difference. In cases, I don't have the details at present, Councillor, but in cases where we've maybe just installed a heating system as a one-off to ensure the property has adequate heating, our colleagues are looking to the future for creating a specific programme for just installing solar panels. That's something that's under discussion because we recognise the value that they can offer a property once installed and reduce costs. Councillor McLean, no, emergency responses, I can offer you some comfort. They're not just carried out by contractors. When it's carried out by our in-house staff, we use an electronic system with a PDA, a mobile phone, that they receive a job, they accept it, they finish the job. It's all recorded electronically. So there's not much intervention required when our in-house staff do that. When a contractor carries it out on our behalf, if we don't have capacity, or they also assist us out of hours to strengthen our team, the completion date is based when we receive their invoice. They document on the invoice when they completed on site. So it's more of a manual process. So what we found is we're not blaming our dear subcontractors at all. All we're saying is there's a few occasions where there's an administrative error, date of invoice rather than date of completion on site. That's the difference. So emergencies are carried out by in-house provision as well. In terms of table 3, for the void process, there is the approved process is that when a tenant notifies housing management that they're leaving a property, they're going to leave or move to another property, we carry out what's called a pre-termination inspection. So you're quite right, Councillor, there is a process in place that can and is circumvented if a property is abandoned or tenants don't tell us that they're leaving, and then in which case we find out one way or another, and then we go in and we find what we find. Unfortunately, there are cases where properties are well below standard, shall we say, that require a lot of investment, capital and revenue to bring it back up to the empty home standard. Those particular cases are very difficult because we can't preempt them. When we enter a property, we see what we see, and then we need to take appropriate action. We look at capacity of our team, but we also work with our housing colleagues that what's their priority, what's their current demand. If they've got a particular house that they need to meet the needs of a specific tenant, we'll prioritise that first. Sometimes that might mean a property requiring a lot more investment has to wait a bit longer. We do take into account, Councillor, the costs that does accumulate, void rental loss and council tax. I do accept that there is a cost to be borne, but we have to prioritise our remedial works to work within budget, but also meet the priorities of our housing management colleagues. In the capital programme of Appendix 2, I don't have the data that you've to hand, Councillor, the count of numbers percentage against required. What we do in terms of energy efficiency, which, you know, a new heating system forms part of that. As I mentioned before, there's two aspects: reactive. If a tenant's heating system fails, we've done an inspection, it's past economical repair, we'll take action immediately to install a new heating system. If we sense that areas are coming to the end of life, shall we say, then my colleague in the asset management team will have inspections of a number of properties in line with the local maintenance officer to provide information. They'll make a strategic programme that captures a lot of properties that we believe is heading towards end of life. We want to capture it in a planned approach. In terms of those numbers, I can discuss with my colleague and come back to you if that's agreeable to Graham, Ralph. I'll see if we can provide some figures for you on that basis in terms of how many are needing to be done, as you've said. In Appendix 1, let me just refresh myself. Yeah, you've mentioned the reactive capital, LD2. LD2, Councillor McLean, that's more of a historical line in the budget. We've completed our LD2 programme, which is the installation of interlinked alarms. Of course, we need some residual budget for any that are needing to be updated or reinstalled if at void they're no longer there, for example, or they've been damaged. So that line in the budget is a residual amount. We've completed the main programme, but obviously we need to continue our programme because the LD2 has a 10-year life cycle. So we're already in discussion for planning for the next round of refreshment. And you also mentioned the rewiring. So this reactive capital budget line of rewires, that's for ad hoc properties that we come across, perhaps again at void, that due to some damage or after we've done an electric inspection and test, we're required to do a full rewire of the property. My colleague Graham, in the planned maintenance, he's focusing more on a number of properties in terms of a programme. So the allowance that I have for the team is for properties that require it here and now or as part of the voids process. Back to you, Chair.
Yeah, thank you. Just as a general point, and a couple of times there you referred to taking up issues offline with councillors, and I've got no problem with that. But since these questions are asked to area committee, then any update or answers to questions should be circulated to all 4 members. We could just remember that. Thanks, Ewan. Councillor Patterson.
Thank you very much. I've got most of my questions answered. But the one thing that's really important to me is this void management, because as you know, there's so many homeless people waiting to get a house or waiting to get a bigger house, and then they see houses lying empty and they say, oh, it's been empty for months, you know, and then when I get in touch with the officer, find out it's had a lot of work to be done to it. Now, I think we have to do something that we can improve that, because I don't know if you do it now, but I don't think so, but we used to do it, is check the gardens at least, because that has a lot of work. When they go in, there's a house that's empty and there's rubbish piled high in the garden, and that takes quite a while to get rid of it all. And it really annoys me that they don't seem to have to pay the cost. And the tenant is maybe going to a better house in the town or a bigger house, and they shouldn't be allowed to leave that mess behind, and even the mess in the houses, because some of them are in really a bad state. So, I mean, there must be somewhere that we can do checks that would give us an idea before they get into that state. And if the gardens are in a mess, then you sort of think, well, what like is the inside of the house? And I know that there's one house in Dingwall that has had a full kitchen in the back garden for years. And it's just not acceptable that, you know, it's a privilege to have one of our social houses, because if you've got to get a private house, it costs about twice the price. So people should look after them, you know. So I don't know if there's any way that we can do checks. I think Angela, Councillor, has been saying it for a number of years that we should have something that we make a, well, not a full check, but you know by out about the house that it needs to be maybe work done to it inside as well, you know. So I don't know if that's possible. I know that we don't have the money for these things or the staff, but I think that it would be really important if we could do something.
Okay, Ian, back to you.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, Councillor Patterson. You know, you raised some very good points there, Councillor. What I can try and offer some comfort on here is in terms of our homeless provision properties for that, our team do prioritise those specifically because we recognise that a roof over somebody's head is very important and it's an absolute requirement. So our voids team also have an aspect of what they do is to turn homeless properties around as quickly as possible to have them available for those in need. You're quite right to point out that sometimes properties are not in the best condition at all, and I see where you're saying that if the garden's in that manner, then potentially what's the inside of a property like? That's a good point. What we do have, we have community wardens who carry out checks. They feed that information back to housing management colleagues and then back to ourselves. Not always for housing repairs to necessarily deal with, but for housing management colleagues to address that situation with tenants to find out why. Is there an underlying issue? Is there any support mechanisms that they would benefit from? And if it comes to physical works at a property, then our housing management colleagues will contact us to seek to arrange that. We also have our maintenance officers and our housing management officers doing their routine day works, whether it's targeted inspections. They do pick these up as par for the course, and they'll feed that back. I appreciate that we can't always take immediate action when it's found because it is a tenant responsibility. You're quite right. To maintain gardens and the property. So we can't just jump in immediately at that point. There's some due diligence checks to be carried out before action can be taken. I do know from my housing management colleagues, appreciate they're not here today because this is repairs, but they have been reinitiating or continuing, shall we say, annual inspections, tenancy inspections, which is a good mechanism to find any of these issues and perhaps tease out any underlying cause or support that our tenants need. Looking forward into the future, we're undergoing a bit of a restructure and refocusing on certain job types. One of my colleagues is looking to have a programme of property inspection for looking at capital elements, as much as we do that as par for the course, but to focus a bit more on that. So Councillor, there will be some additional property inspections being carried out, and if we pick up things like this, we'll feed that back to the relevant team to try and take that forward. Back to you, Chair.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Any further questions, members? No. Well, the recommendation is at 2.1. They're asked to note the information provided in the housing performance in the period. Can we do that? That's us, Ewan. Thanks very much for your time. A few questions there, and thanks for your responses. Okay.
It's fine. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members.
Bye-bye. Moving on, we're at agenda item 6, Scottish Government Play Park funding. I understand John is with us on. Hi, John. Over to you.
Morning, Chair. Good morning, members. Today, I'm asking members to agree to £86,860 to be allocated to the projects as outlined in section 641 of the report. And I hope this one is a good news story, and because the project will enhance the play areas throughout the ward, and it will improve the quality of play for all the children for years to come. The parks we'd like to upgrade are MacDonald Road in Dingwall, Pefferside Park, Dingwall, Docarty Road in Dingwall, Seaforth Place Recreation Ground in Maryborough, the football park in Conan Bridge, and Highfield Circle Muirford and Taradale Primary Muirford. And I think we've worked quite hard on trying to get a good spread of investment right through the whole ward, that nobody's suffering, and everywhere that needs something is getting something in their play parks. That's really all I have to say in it, members. It's quite a short report, but I'm happy to take any questions at all on that.
Start with Councillor Patterson.
Hello, John. It's nice to have someone giving us good news. And you've managed to spread it over, so I think that's fantastic that we've sort of tried to give everyone something new. I mean, it's fantastic news. I know the money is tight just now, so to get some is very exciting for the whole ward. Play parks are so important to parents and especially children. And I think there'll be a lot of excitement seeing any new toys that are coming along. And it's so good for their health and everything, getting out in the fresh air. So that's really good news. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Councillor Patterson.
Yeah, hi, John. I just would like some clarity on 5.2. It says the council for Dingwall and Seaforth has 13 play areas and 72 pieces of play equipment. That's the one that amenities are responsible for only, that's mentioned there. That
yes, Councillor McLean.
Because
yes, that's absolutely correct. There will be other play parks out there that the council have no responsibility, like Albin and other social housing, and it does not include the play parks within the school grounds that the education services are responsible for.
And that's my next question, because I know that the schools are, a lot of them, they're responsible for replacing the equipment themselves and getting it inspected. You only inspect the 13 play parks within Dingwall and Seaforth as part of your regular inspections. So my question is about the money that's left. Is it from the Scottish Government, and can it only be used by the council to upgrade their play parks? It's just that we do have a number within our community that are not Highland Council's responsibility insofar as amenities, but a number of our schools have been asking for upgrades on their play equipment, and they're trying to fundraise. Can they access the money that each of the wards got, is my question. And my last one is I wanted to congratulate St Clement's School in that they have been fundraising, the parents and the community have been fundraising for some time and have raised over £85,000, and that play equipment went in, and that was down to them, not Highland Council. So, and I believe that from those that I've spoken to, that the kids are just loving it. So I just wondered, so that's my questions, and congratulate St Clement's School and the tremendous work, because it's not easy raising all that money. Thanks.
Councillor
Still there, John?
Yes, sorry, I thought there was somebody else coming in there.
You go.
Yeah, to answer your question, and I don't have the Scottish Government paper with the rules in front of me, but I'm certain I'm correct in saying that the play park must be open. So for a school to get it, to get a finance from what's left, and all we've got at the moment is a small contingency in case we need more money. And when this project is done, hopefully we'll have a few thousand for a couple of other small projects. But I think the play park has to be open to the public. And if it's in a school and the gates is closed when the school closes at night, then that's not seen as a public play park. So I think there's a wee bit of scrutiny we have to be careful on there. But I think if it is open basically 24/7, then that's certainly something we could look at. And anything coming in, we would also look at any, if it was a private play park, folk wanting to raise money, if we could match fund anything, that we're always open to look at, to look at that. And that sounds absolutely fantastic for St Clement's School. There's an awful lot of folk have done an awful lot of work in fundraising and getting money and pulling our play parks really up to a very, very high standard. And yeah, we do not inspect the school's play parks at the moment. I think that's something that's been addressed in the short to medium term, but not something for the meeting today. But yes, believe the head teachers are responsible at the moment for the inspection and maintenance of all their play parks.
Thank you, John. Any further questions, members? Well, timescales, John, when can we start seeing this good, nice new kit appearing in the play parks? And just for clarification, at the moment we've got 94,827. So once we agree to this, we'll be left with £7,000 or £8,000. Is that correct?
Yes, Chair, that's correct. We've kept a small contingency in case we hit groundworks or something that needs extra money. And the difficult question is timescales. We're actually looking at rejigging our play tech team that we can actually keep them going and going and going, installing play parks, because it is really important. But once I order this equipment, it's probably going to be the turn of the year before we even get the stuff in, because as you can imagine, all the Scottish local authorities with the Scottish Government money, all the orders are flooding into the play companies now, so we have a huge delay. And that's part of the reason why, well, it's doublefold the reason we want to install them ourselves. And that spoils me saying we'll get it done in February, because one, we can basically get twice the amount of equipment if we actually install it ourselves, rather than paying somebody to come up from the south to install it. And I believe we're way down the queue for installs, because these companies are doing installs all over Scotland and there's a huge backlog with them. So, but I would hope, all being well and all being equal, I would hope if we get the equipment in by the turn of the year, I would hope by spring I'll be hoping to get most of this in. What we're trying to do is get anything that's an easy fix, easy to put in, quick to put in. We'll be looking at doing that first. And if something's going to take a long time to put in, we may slide that back a wee bit just to try and keep the momentum going and getting the installs in.
Okay, thanks, John. Members were asked to agree £86,860 to be allocated to the agreed projects. Can we do that?
Agreed.
Thanks for your time this morning, John, for coming along, and no doubt we'll see you in due course.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. Bye now.
Members, we now have again item 7, the winter service plan, 25-26. Ian Keith is with us this morning.
Good morning, members. This is the winter service plan for Dingwall and Seaforth. It's essentially the same report as last winter. same people, the same number of writers, same routes. Would you like me to go through the report, or would you like to skip to the questions and answers?
You want it? We happy to go to questions? Who has questions? John?
Yeah, point, what, solve them. Get one and we, again with Hill Street because we, stuff. The fitting is that I think yeah, and get some well, some yeah, speak that you can say what also so you know yeah, the background in Dingwall and Seaforth, I can tell you that.
Any other questions? Anne?
So, yeah, thank you, Chair. Mine was on the ribbons too. There's a few that are broken, and I know the guys are all out resurfacing or surface dressing, and they've all been busy, they've been good with the weather. Is there any opportunity to use the criminal justice or others to fill the grip bins, or is that not a possibility? So it's one less task for the small team in the area to do. And is there any change on this winter maintenance from last year? And are the vehicles ready for winter? Is that always, there's always at least one of them breaks down, not just here, but throughout the Highlands, just as the season gets started, they all serviced and everything. Really, thank you.
Ian, suppose,
Okay, Councillor Kennedy, we'll look at the salt bin at the end of Hill Street. Potholes, we've got 10 men covering Black Isle, Dingwall and Seaforth. We're coming to the end of our capital programme. There's a few schemes left to go. After that, we'll be on to the revenue works, including potholes. We also have a contract with Thermal Road Repairs, and once we get some free resources, we'll be putting that out as well.
can I just, before you leave that, can I ask about these repairers? A, are we going to sit on in situ at Highland? And B, are they weather confined, and are they available throughout the winter, so that we don't have a season anymore? So.
Yeah, just taking that questions next. Thermal Road Repairs use our depots. I couldn't say if they have a base in the Highlands, but they tend to, we would put a program and then they would come up and they would use our depots as a staging post. In terms of the weather window, because they heat up the surrounding town in the road, in theory it can be done in all weathers. But I would be a bit hesitant if there was snow on the road. But I understand that even with that, they can undertake repairs. But it's not as dependent as trying to put hot tar down when it's freezing conditions. I'll see whether we can use the criminal justice to fill the grip bins and to replace the broken grip pumps, Councillor McLean. And I don't think there's any other changes in the committee report from last year. Are our gritters ready? No. We have dates when we are expected to get a couple of our gritters back on the road. Oh, apologies. And the calibrations for the actual spin up part, which spin the actual salt out, that schedules for, I believe it's October.
Can I ask a follow on? Why is, for me, October's winter? I know it's not you that does that, but is that because there's so many vehicles throughout Highland, and why is it so late, in my view? And I'm not an expert, I appreciate that.
Yeah, there's two companies, calibrated spinners, Schmidt and Cuthbertson's. So if you've got a Cuthbertson's gritter, it gets calibrated by Cuthbertson's, similarly Schmidt. They are pretty busy and they have slots that we have to meet. Ideally, I would like to have all my gritters ready to go mid-September, but there's a limited amount of mechanics who can work on the gritters, and I've been assured that we'll have all our gritters on board for the start of winter.
I know I'm not a weatherman, but winter can come anytime, really, with the climate change. So I suppose you can't answer that. The reason I asked about the routes for the gritter was that when new housing schemes are added to the system, are you informed of that? And that will have an impact, I suppose, especially with the number of new houses in Dingwall and in Conan. That has an impact on, then they're all on routes to schools. Is that having an impact on how long it takes you to get round?
Yes, before we start winter, we will be, if you like, finalising our routes. Each year we go to school transport. So if a new family moves in, or a family moves out of the area, that may affect the individual routes, but they tend to be on the mostly on the other routes. Primary and secondary routes don't really change that much. New housing estates, I prepare an adoption report, so I'm aware of them, and that ends up in our route book. But as we deal with the primaries, then the secondaries, then the others, it has to be a particularly bad day, because typically what happens is by the time we finish the secondaries, the temperatures are usually up. But yes, housing schemes that are adopted will be added to the route.
Thank you, Councillor Bass.
Yeah, mine's is just a small one, but an important one. The grit containers. When do they get checked? Because there's often ones that are broken and they can't keep the grit dry. And when do we put grit in? And do we check them all the time to top them up? Because if it's a very frosty night or bad night, they can empty one, you know, just especially if you've got canary break, that cars can't get out. So I just wondered when that happens. Thank you.
Yeah, the grit bins will be checked before winter starts, but I can't give the date as such. And we use the grit bins to stock the footpath tractors. So we know if there's a grit bin running empty, and we'll restock these grit bins as resources permit and as required.
Just before we go on, Sean, one of your microphone isn't working properly. Could you move to another seat, please? And Margaret, apparently cameras picking
Is
up
that
you,
working better?
you move to another seat, please. Apparently the camera is able to pick you up. Could you move to, could you shift to another seat, please? One in front and the one beside. I've got 2 or 3 questions here I'd like to ask. Not exactly related to the winter programme, but since we're that way. And the first one, I'm sure you won't be able to answer, but can you get for us, please, a timetable for when thermal heat machine will be in Dingwall and Seaforth and the programme for usage? And I know you can't answer that right now, but we hope you go. Second question is, has there been since the original allocation of funds, both for revenue and capital, has been any change from that with regards to Russell property over the last few months? And the third question is, and again, it's not for now, but we were all aware of the uproar that was caused by the Scottish Blood Scheme and their delay point. Are we well on the way to resolving that so that we would come to the spring of a similar kerfuffle to what we had a few months ago? Thanks.
Yes, Councillor Mackenzie. Once we get our works programme together and we get a date from Thermal Road Repairs, I can forward that to members. Original revenue and capital changes. The revenue budget, as far as I'm aware, has remained the same. The capital programme has decreased by, I believe, about £300,000 for Ross and Cromarty.
Can you tell me, Ian, whose decision that was?
That was, I believe, officers in HQ.
Maybe we can all pick up on that one, members.
There is a meeting tomorrow. Scottish Water's request. And they want to go over their latest proposals for our building. I think we should wait to see what they're saying before we comment. But I think my position is quite clear based on their last proposals.
I think all members want to reinforce it, although in Farrell at the moment it continues to be a real live issue for people in Dingwall. They're watching the situation very carefully. So I'm here happy to hear what you say and we'll hear how that meeting goes.
Perhaps.
Councillor Kent.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, follow on from your question to Ian about who made the decision about which team does that come under? Who's the main man there?
I would imagine it's under Roach and it would be the responsibility of Malcolm's team.
And Debbie as well, yeah? Debbie's
Yes, I suspect that such decision may have been made before Debbie was elevated.
So just on that, more and more I feel that councillors are being left out of the loop, even on little things. And there's another, there was an anticipation of some, extra money was coming, and now we find out, because I think the other area committee took place, that, there was this cut for the whole of Ross and Cromarty area without even an email or any involvement of any of the councillors or senior councillors.
Thank you. Yeah, I agree with you. Anything else? Okay, recommendations are 2.1.1, 2.1.2. Wrong item. Members asked to approve the winter service plan for the coming year. Okay, thanks very much, Ian. Okay, thank you. Yes, thank you. Right. Moving on, bereavement services, council agenda is 8 going to be Hull. Looking around. John McLean with us here this morning. Good morning, John. I'll hand over to you.
Hi, good afternoon, members. Thanks for having us along. Yeah, I'm just here to give a quick update just on the projects within the Dingwall and Seaforth area. We did agree at the Communities in Place Committee that we would come round all area committees once a year just to give an update of where we are for the specific areas. So just a quick one on the report. The background is section 5 there. Says we have 6 burial grounds within the Dingwall and Seaforth area, and 3 of these are operational with 3 closed. Appendix 1 gives a breakdown of layer availability and capacity data within the area. And as you'll see, we don't have any issues regarding capacity within the area. And then just sort of a brief one we stuck in there in section 6.4, it's just some recent projects that have been completed within the Dingwall and Seaforth area. Mitchell Hill Burial Ground local amenities team been working with project design unit to survey the site and create update and improved maps for the site. And then St Clement's Isle, just a couple of months ago, we officially signed off the lease agreement with the Dingwall Community Development Company, and they've taken on the lease for 25 years. So yeah, that's pretty much all I've got, and I'm happy to take any questions.
No questions, but an observation from me in that Dingwall, if you believe Dingwall social media, you would be led to believe that Mitchell Hill is full, whereas 823 there. So it's good to get that sort of clarity. Councillor Patterson.
Yes, thank you very much. Hello, John. How are you?
Good, thanks.
My first one, you'll know what my first one is, and that's the gates at Fodderty. I still have to keep shutting them. And it seems such a shame, as Angela will agree with. We spent a fortune getting these gates done, and because they're left open, you know, there's no point, and I cannot understand why people are going in that way to get into the cemetery, because you can get through the other gate and come down. And the gates are needing a wee bit of care, and I think we have to look at that seriously. One gate shuts quite easy, but the other one is quite hard, and they're needing a wee bit, there's a wee bit of paint on it. It's to keep the rust away. The rust is coming through. We don't want to lose these gates because they're very precious. And the other thing is the paths are still the one that I keep showing you. It's very difficult to walk on because it's on a hill, you know, and people are complaining about it. The grass has been a bit better this year, the same in Mitchell Hill, but still not 100%, you know. And I see other graveyards and their grass is beautiful, and they say, why isn't, you know, that one's, but otherwise, oh, and the stones, I'm still you know, worried about the stones, that the grasses that fell in that storm, and the grass is growing over them now. So, you know, when they're cutting the grass, they must be hitting these big stones. And I know it's a difficult one because we have to be very careful about them in case they fall. But, okay, thank you.
I'll pause there and come back. I know there was a report came to Communities in Place last week about this, John. Maybe you could try to answer Councillor Patterson.
Yeah. Yeah, as you're aware, we've discussed the gates at Fodderty on numerous times. I wasn't aware we still had issues with them being left open. I think we'll have to revisit to find a suitable solution to keeping them shut. But I'll certainly take that up with the local amenities team. Again, we'll certainly check the gates to see if they're needing work. We'll get a contractor to have a look at that. And similar with the paths and the grass. The path, I know the path, the main one that we're talking about that leads up the hill, there is issues with that, and it's a difficult solution. Put anything just onto it, it'll probably just wash away just down the gradient of it, but we can certainly speak to some contractors, see if we can get some ideas and some quotes on how to fix that. Yeah, memorial safety, the headstones. I think you're probably talking about the few that we've been talking about recently or in the last few years. But in the bigger project, we are inspecting all the burial grounds across Highland, and if we're finding any headstones that are unstable, we're making a temporary repair at this stage to ensure that the burial ground's safe for visitors, contractors and workers. But if there's certain memorials that we need to look at, I'll certainly take that up with you. Maybe I'll give you a shout, Margaret, offline.
Yes, that would be fine. Thank you, John.
Any further questions, members? Councillor Kennedy?
Yeah, thanks, Chair. John, when you got the figures and everything, you know, the number of prepared layers, average sold capacity in years, I don't kind of understand that. You know, it seems very low, the amount of layers that have been sold every year. I kind of don't understand the figures. But on top of it, I think one thing to be noted as well, and I had been in touch with Scott Duncan earlier in the year, you know, about the grass in Fodderty. It seems whatever work was done, that he's got that under control. You know, you know, there was obviously problems at the back end of last year. So a wee bit of congratulations to the team for preparing that and getting it looking better again. But I don't quite understand the figures.
I think there's some communities in place that historically showing that people purchased layers well before they were ever going to be needed, and that practice has stopped. John will correct me if I'm wrong, but it appears that people are no longer pre-purchasing layers the way they used to. All right, John?
Yep, certainly our chair, there is definitely a, we don't sell so many layers as we previously did, just as exactly what you said there. People now not so much buying layers in advance, but that's not really got anything to do with the figures that we're on here. So the figures that we do, we get the information supplied back to us every week from the local burial admin teams, and we monitor the sales over, I think it's the last 7 years. So that's where the average comes from. So So again, we just get these figures in weekly, we keep it up to date, and then anything, we look at current capacity, and again, sort of the red flags are just what once to get to 10 years. With current capacity is less than 10 years, we then start to plan new extensions. So the average layers there, although they do seem low, it's a lot of obviously, but often a layer can take up to 2 or 3 people in a layer. So layers are not, it's not showing the actual number of burials we have in each of the cemeteries. Hope that's kind of explained it.
Probably a little bit clearer than it was before. Thank you, John.
Oh.
Any further questions, members? Okay, recommendations at 2.1, 0.1 and 0.2, can we note as recommended?
Noted. Thank you.
Thanks, John.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming along. Take care. See you soon.
Cheerio. Bye-bye.
We're now on to agenda item 9, environmental health annual report and activity, and we have with us this morning Barry Cumming. So welcome, Barry. I think it is your first meeting with us at Dingwall and Seaforth, so we wish you well, and we'll hand over to you for the report.
That's lovely. Thank you very much, Chair. Members, good afternoon. With your permission, I've got a very short kind of summary presentation, if I can work the IT. I apologise I can't be with you today, but I'm so full of cold. I think you probably appreciate me being as far away from the chamber as possible. But if I can share my screen with you, if you're happy for that. Bear with me. Can you see anything yet?
Just a blue screen, I'm afraid.
Oh, I'm really sorry. I do apologise for this.
We're back to you.
It's gone terribly, terribly awry. I do apologise for this. See if I can drag it this way over. How about this? Can you see anything now?
Yeah, we've got that now.
Excellent. I'm really sorry for this. Anyway, yeah, Barry Cumming here, and I'm a Senior Environmental Health Officer based in the Dingwall office. I was appointed to post just over 3 months ago, and I've come over to Dingwall after previously working as an Environmental Health Officer in Inverness. And the post became available following the retirement of Clifford Smith, who I'm sure many of you have known. And before I start, I'd just like to say I look forward to working with you all collectively and individually over the coming years. It's the first time, as you say, I've presented a report to this committee, and it follows on from a commitment that we made in the operational plan, the Environmental Health Operational Plan, to provide reports to the area committees going forward, with the aim of making you aware of the work that Environmental Health are doing, to give you an opportunity to provide feedback to me and the team as to any issues that you wish us to prioritise, as well as to request feedback and comments from you on the way that we undertake our work in your area. As you can see from the report and the list in the appendix, the environmental health duties are wide-ranging, but we all have the general remit to protect and improve public health. Much of our work is preventative and proactive. For example, our programme of scheduled food safety inspections. Our enforcement approach follows a 4E system, which is to engage with, for example, a business, to explain what is required to protect public health, and to encourage, for example, a business to do the right thing, but ultimately, if necessary, to enforce if there's no other recourse and the public health risk is deemed unacceptable. Environmental health, we work out of 3 areas: the north, Caithness and Sutherland; mid, which is Ross and Cromarty, Inverness, Badenoch, Strathspey; and the west side, Lochaber and Skye. Within the mid team, there's 3 senior EHOs, myself, now based out of Dingwall, excuse me, and 2 others who are operating out of the Inverness office. And our officers provide cover for the mid area from both of the Inverness and the Dingwall offices. And I think I've presented a detailed team structure in the appendix. Our activities are split into three main areas: reactive work, which is raised by the public and other bodies or identified by our own officers throughout the course of our work. Proactive and scheduled work, which is predominantly the food inspection programme in this area, but private water supplies programme and work to do with the licensing of establishments such as animal boarding and that sort of thing. And we also undertake formal enforcement when necessary. And all of the figures that I presented in the report are for the period between the 1st of April 2024 to the 31st of March 25, and they relate only to the Dingwall and Seaforth ward area. So the total number of service requests for this area for the year April 24 to March 25 was 568, which is an increase from 335 in 23-24, and obviously a higher number there in 2022-23, but we're still higher than that this year. And the main service requests relate to export health certificates, abandoned vehicles, short-term licensing, and noise and other statutory nuisance. Our proactive work relates mainly to the food safety in the area, food premises visits and inspections. In particular, there's 5 approved establishments in this area, food manufacturers and or processors, which require an enhanced level of intervention at regular intervals throughout the year. And there's also a few miscellaneous licenses in the ward animal boarding establishments and 2 registered commercial private water supplies. And as I say, only been in for 3 months, but looking at the review of the cases, my understanding of the primarily local issues here, obviously based on the numbers, the export health certificates, 175 export health certificates were certified by this service this year. And that supports the export, in particular, of fish and fishery products to the rest of the world and Europe. Abandoned vehicles, we've had 77 reports of abandoned vehicles over the year. To put it into context, there's been somewhere around about 1,400 reports given to us over the last year across the whole of the Highlands. And one of the focus areas for myself is I'm charged to review our procedures and our operational guidance to become more efficient at managing this. Short-term licensing, we've had 67 consultations. And as a consultee, environmental health, we're responsible for assessing the safety conditions of such properties, and we also deal with complaints. And noise, there's been 51 service requests relating to noise, the majority of them relating to domestic noise, but there has been 6 for construction, industrial type noise. And that's what I've kind of extrapolated from the data so far, but I'm happy to take suggestions for other priority areas for us to look at over the coming year, if any members are aware of anything in particular. Other issues for environmental health across the Highlands, wider matters, include new animal licensing. Following Scottish Government's consultation, the licensing of canine fertility services is expected to come into place in April 26, and it's anticipated that this licensing will be extended next year to cover dog walking, dog grooming services, that kind of thing. The regulation of non-surgical cosmetic procedures such as microneedling, chemical peels into the epidermis, etc. There is an ongoing consultation by the Scottish Government, and there's likely to be a role for environmental health in the licensing of such premises. And at the moment, it's not known how many operate across the Highlands. And as I said before, OCV, this is official control verification, which is a new system introduced for high-risk approved premises, food premises. As I say, there's 5 in Ward 8, and rather than the previous system of a single annual inspection, there's now a requirement for ongoing visits and assessments throughout the year. And this is resulting in a significant increase in resource requirements from the service. So that's a really quick run through of environmental health operations in the area. Just ask you to note and provide any feedback on the range and volume of the work that we're doing. If you've got any issues with the Highland-wide issues, and to provide feedback regarding the report format and the content. Thank you very much. And I'm happy to take any questions that members might have.
Thank you, Barry. This is very opposite because at an early business meeting before this, we raised the issue of abandoned vehicles, and it's interesting to see that there have been 77 reports. Now, the fact of the matter is that over the years there have been many such requests, very few of which seem to have been dealt with. And there's vehicles lying in the ward, across the ward, which have been there for years. Now, we had asked Lynn, our ward manager, this morning if she could ask for someone to come along to our next ward business meeting. So if I can cut out the middleman here, our next ward business meeting is September the 15th. Can we have either yourself or a representative at that meeting, and we'll undertake to try and identify where these vehicles are in the meantime, so that you've got up-to-date information. Would that be possible?
That would be absolutely great. Yeah, happy to do that.
Any other questions, comments, Councillor McLean?
Yes, and I think we're all going to raise that issue about abandoned vehicles. And at 6.7, you talk about a pilot scheme in Easter Ross. Maybe you could expand on that. And how does the public contact you regarding issues of abandoned vehicles or caravans or other things that are maybe on wheels that are taking up car parking spaces and haven't moved for years? Because it's really difficult to contact the council. My other questions are on, let's see, the export health certificates. I know Clifford had a lot to do with that previously and required in a TIMIUS manner because the exports have to go on its, live fish at times. Is that going smoothly now, that process, working with our fish exporters locally? And the pests, mice, rats and seagulls, there is an increase. In fact, I reported to housing just last week of complaints of people feeding seagulls or birds, but it's actually rats, either from the railway lines or from the local burns that are coming into gardens. What information is available? I know Inverness do a lot of work on seagulls, but what information is available locally that we could send out to maybe our residents when things like that happen, and then stop encouraging people to feed seagulls? And I think you said there was, I'll leave that one because there'll be others wanting to ask. So just the contact details. I know you've got a plan of the post numbers, but either the email address, if it's a generic one, or the phone number that people can use to contact environmental health, either over noise, abandoned vehicles, or any other issues. That would be great. Thank you.
Councillor Kennedy.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. We'd asked earlier, is Lindsay MacLeod, I think, still the dog warden? And I think Councillor McLean has covered quite a lot. And I would urge to say that seagulls now firmly come under the thing of pests. I mean, I used to go in and see Cliff every year, and he would say, no, is there anything that we can really do? Because I mean, there's more and more young yet again this year, and they really are swooping on people, and somebody's going to get hurt before long. The seagulls, sea is the word that goes to them, but they're not. They're now domesticated gulls. They're not seagulls anymore, and they are a real pest in Dingwall and Seaforth.
Okay, we'll pause there and come back to you, Barry.
Okay, yeah, thank you. Contacting us, excuse me, with regards to abandoned vehicles, the website, I think that there is a new website in production at the moment, but currently you can contact us regarding abandoned vehicles to log them with the service. And that, as I say, just straight from the website for abandoned vehicles, and for all the other inquiries, queries, complaints. Again, phone in the standard, contact the council through the service centre and online. I think those are the main contact details. Yeah, you'd asked about the project in East Ross, so that's a project with housing and traffic. That's I think they're looking at a traffic regulation order in a certain area to manage the parking of vehicles in a certain area, and that's progressing. So that trial will be operational hopefully before the end of the year, and we'll see how that one goes. We're also looking at other ways, as you say. Great, if there's a lot that have been reported a long time ago and nothing's moved on them, more than happy to come and have a meeting there on September the 15th with any reports of any, and I'd ask anyone that's got a abandoned vehicle, known abandoned vehicle, or a vehicle that they think is an abandoned vehicle, and you have to either log it through the website or through the service centre. The export health certificates, yes, the process is, as I say, with Clifford's retirement. Yeah, we have kind of changed the systems a little bit to try and get greater resilience in the team to cover export health certificates. We do it already covering the areas from Ullapool and from Scrabster and Inverness. So those teams have now kind of can now provide resilience to the team in Dingwall to provide export health certification for certificates there. For complaints about people feeding animals, again, yeah, we've got standard letters that we can send out to people to advise them not to. We can visit them to advise them not to feed seagulls, not to feed because of course the potential impact for mice and rats to come from any food that's left on the floor if seagulls don't get it. But again, it's contact us and we can get an officer out. We don't actually do pest control ourselves for residents, but we can offer advice to try and help people manage it. The question, Lindsay McLeod, yes, Lindsay is still community works officer in the Dingwall office, and given the amount of work that is involved in the dog side of things, as well as the other community works side of things like the abandoned vehicles, we have taken on another education and enforcement officer. He started about a week after I did, and he's been working with Lindsay closely, picking up everything in the Ross and Cromarty area. So that's has now got two education enforcement assistant community works officers working in the Ross and Cromarty area. And yeah, seagulls are a problem. Yeah, Inverness bid. I think our problem, Nature Scott, there is some advice around, but Nature Scott, I think they reduced the number of licenses for controlling seagulls, but due to the decrease, conversely, in numbers of gulls that they've reported. And I actually just got a text this morning to say that the Scottish Government, I think, are looking at a seagull summit somewhere in the end of September with Nature Scott to try and get a better handle on this issue, because I think you're right. I think the number of people reporting seagull issues seems to be increasing, and they are becoming more of a pest. Unfortunately, the council don't have a statutory requirement to actually control seagulls. I know that Inverness have a number of operations going through I think it's managed by the bid team, Inverness Bid, where I think they have things like falcons, and they look at preventative measures prior to nesting and clearing nest sites as they start to get built at the certain parts of the season. And it's something that Inverness are kind of trialing, I suppose, on behalf of the rest of the Highlands. It's something that maybe could come out in future to other areas, but certainly you're right. I understand seagulls have become more of an issue in town centres. And I think I've covered anything else there.
Councillor Kennedy.
Yeah, I just want to come back on that, Chair. I'm not really bothered about Inverness because Inverness have got enough money to be able to deal with seagulls. When Councillor Kennedy's walking down the high street with a D's pie and a seagull sweeps on him and tries to take out of his hand, that's what Councillor Kennedy's worried about, and he's not the only person that it's happening to. So really, Inverness doesn't concern me about their seagull problems because they could do something about it. We need to do something about it here.
I think we're proposing Dingwall and Seaforth that Councillor Kennedy is a delegate to the Seagull Summit. Councillor Patterson.
No, I was just going to say to Sean, well, it does concern me because I got attacked by a seagull just outside the council Inverness headquarters, and I really was badly hurt. So, you know, I can tell you how dangerous that and we need to do something because everybody is complaining about them. But I think they've all got different species of them. There's the seagull herrings, and there's different names for them. And the ones that are in the town, they don't care where they live. You know, the other seagulls can stay at the sea. But the seagulls now have grown used to having different food, and that's why they're staying in the towns. And they are a nightmare, and we need to do something because, as far as I know, they're protected, and that makes it very difficult.
Yes, Councillor Patterson, they do have names, and I'm sure that Councillor Kennedy has a few more names for them. But I don't know if there's any questions in there, but any comments you want to make, Barry?
No, as I say, I think, yeah, the Inverness side of things, I think it's possibly something that we can use the information that we get from success or any positives that come out of them, perhaps use the data that they're gathering currently as perhaps information that'll feed how best to manage gulls in future in other areas. That's, I guess, is probably my reference to Inverness.
Was one question: are they still protected?
They are, yeah, they are. And as I say, there was a report by Nature Scott, February, I think it was February last year, where they outlined that, as I say, what might seem strange is that the population is decreasing. So I think one of the issues this year is that they've reduced the number of licenses for controlling them. Or they haven't been issuing them quite as frequently as they perhaps previously did. So yeah, I think they are still protected, though. Yeah.
Okay, then I think we've exhausted this one. The recommendations are in front of you at 2.1, 1, 2 and 3. We're asked to note and provide. I think we've done that. Can we agree? Thank you. Thank you, Barry. It was nice to meet you, and we'll see either yourself or a rep at our ward business meeting in 3 weeks today.
Brilliant. Just send me an invite. That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you.
Cheers.
I think before, as members, we should try and put our own list together so that there's something there for him when he comes, or whoever comes. We could do that through Lynn, coordinate that. Just let Lynn know where there are abandoned vehicles, caravans, etc., and we'll pick it up within 3 weeks. Okay. Okay. Now where are we? We're at agenda item 10, Dingwall Common Good Fund. We don't have far to go for this one.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you, members. A brief report for you, a monitoring report on Common Good Fund. In the report, you'll see the 2024-25 monitoring statement for the Dingwall Common Good Fund is contained there, and the Q1 monitoring statement for the current financial year 2025-26. Just a couple of things to highlight for you. In section 5.1 of the report, it outlines the Q4 monitoring statement for the 2024-25 financial year as detailed in Appendix 1, and members are asked to note that the end of year statement for 2024-25 is near final, pending completion of the audit of the Highland Council accounts. And I'm very happy to take any questions you might have through you, Chair. Thank you.
Do members any such questions? No. Okay, thank you. The recommendation for us is scrutinise and note. We haven't done much scrutiny, but we do note. Okay. 11, Dingwall and Seaforth Ward discretionary budgets. We've asked to note the 4 allocations that we've made. Can we agree that we've done that?
Noted.
We are asked to note the minutes of the Dingwall and Seaforth Area Committee held on 26th of May. You do that?
Noted.
Noted. So that brings us to the end of our meeting today, members. Thanks for your attendance. Thanks to Lynn and to Gillian and our loyal public.